What is happening? It is I, your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM. It is 1 o'clock, the 14th day of March 2021. Daylight savings time is about to strike us and confuse us, as it always does. And it is Mega Dungeon March. Yeah. So we're slowly peeling back the layers of Mega Dungeon building. We've established more or less what the difference between a regular dungeon and a mega dungeon is. At least I hope we have. We'll probably revisit it. We've asked the question, who built it? Where did they build it? Why did they build it? How did it get to where it is today? And now we're getting, peeling up another layer. We're getting to the good stuff. What is going on in the mega dungeon today that the reason the player characters have to go there? What has happened? What will they encounter? What are the sections? What are the iconic images? What's the first thing they hear? What's the first thing they see? What are the factions? What makes the mega dungeon today different than when it was first built? What's going on? What is it that makes the player characters show up and go in there and want to keep going in there? What keeps them coming back other than risk and reward and EXP and stuff? What is the Mega Dungeon story of today as opposed to, when it was first built? And if we're looking at, established Mega Dungeon versus our real world example Mega Dungeon, UCLA, then there's a lot of things, What is it that people know about our Mega Dungeon? What is the reason they're coming here? What has changed? Because assumedly that Mega Dungeon's been there for a long time. Some things changed to make people suddenly interested in it. What's the first thing they see? What's the first thing they hear? What have they heard about it? What's going on in the Mega Dungeon today? What are the iconic images that will stick with you so that people tell the stories? Like, classic, the Hall of Talking Skulls. That's it. What are the sections? Because Mega Dungeons have sections, and this section might be spiders, and this section might be sand, or whatever. What is going on in the Mega Dungeon? What has happened? So if we're looking at our real world example, UCLA, right? Okay, since we're using the original example. So what do our adventurers know about our Mega Dungeon based upon UCLA? They know that it was once a library, that it was once an institute for education, and something has happened to change it. So what's going on? What has inspired our fantasy equivalent of our real world UCLA to make adventurers now suddenly interested as opposed to, a week ago? Why? I don't care. Now I'm like, I care. So what has changed in your Mega Dungeon to make it something that interests those first level characters to go in and keep returning? What is the new story? Because again, presumably it's been there for a while. Undermountain's been there for a while. Barrowmaze has been there for a while. UCLA has been there for a while, but for some reason, something has changed to now get adventurers to start going. Even when, Undermountain first came out, again, it was sort of assumed it'd been there for a while, but now something has changed to make people want to go in. And what had changed was that an adventurer had come out of Undermountain and decided to profit off of other people going back into Undermountain. So he built an inn over the entrance that he found. That is what changed. That is what suddenly got more people going in and out of Undermountain as before. And the previously is now people knew about it because he was going around telling people about it. People knew that this threat was actually underneath their feet and was being kept as a secret. And now adventurers now had a way to get in and bargain and make money and gamble. And it became almost a tourist. Well, the Yawning Portal is a tourist trap, and going into Undermountain through the Yawning Portal is pretty much like the same as visiting Dino Land. It's a tourist trap. You're paying money to go in, even though it's a risk, because there's a reward, and here is an easy way to get into Undermountain. That's what's changed. What changed in our fantasy UCLA that suddenly now people are going back in? Well, if we're following the theme of, mystical, weird, super large institute of education, maybe rumors are starting to spread that the institute is open again and is accepting new students again, or something like that. Or, UCLA football lost and it's caused a riot. So in fantasy terms, something has changed in the dungeon that caused a riot that is now getting attention of outside sources, and people are going, we need to go in here and see what's going on. Barrowmaze, the undead are starting to become more plentiful. They're starting to break out. They're starting to threaten the city. What has changed? Okay, so that's the first thing. What has changed? What is the questions that the dungeon is going to ask of the player characters to make them become interested and keep going back? And that's because when, an Undermountain, a mega dungeon, is a living, breathing organism, and what the characters do changes it. What happens in it changes it. So every time you go through, it's different because something changed. If you clear out a room, there's a chance something new will move into that room. If you eradicate a faction, something will fill that power vacuum. These are what makes a mega dungeon different. So again, what are the zones? Because even Barrowmaze has zones, even though it tells one consistent story of undead. There's zones. This zone is controlled by the cult of death. This zone is, a zombie apocalypse. This zone is whatever. Undermountain has zones. It's a little bit, here's our what do they like? Here's an arena. Here's a gauntlet. Here's our wizard school. Our UCLA section has zones. Here's the zone dedicated to one form of study. Here's the zone dedicated to a different type of study. Here's the zone that is the hospital. Here's the zone that is administration. Here's the sports section. Here's the extensions, the adjacent things. Here's the library. Here's the bank. Here's the food court. These are all zones, and in these zones, things will be. They're highly more likely to encounter certain things in the laboratory zone as opposed to in the sports zone. And those things will tend to remain consistent unless the players do something to change the zone. So again, what did you do to change the zone? What has changed in the dungeon? Because now you have to incite that reason to keep going back. Otherwise, a mega dungeon is pointless. There's got to be some reason to go, another mystery to solve, another thing to see. And then, of course, what are the iconic images? Not just, what's the first thing they see when they go through the entrance? Undermountain, the first thing you usually see when you go into Undermountain is the yawning portal. This big, gaping well, and this bar that's been built around this well, and these people and things that are, betting on you and taking advantage of and living off of this whole environment. So what's the first thing they see when they go into our mega dungeon? What are the iconic images that people will talk about? The Hall of Floating Skulls, the statue of the founding wizard, the UCLA sports complex. What are the iconic images, that will just keep in people's minds? And then what are my zones? What are my factions? Because even in Barrowmaze, there's factions. Even in, Undermountain, there's faction. There's a goblin faction. There's the wizard faction. There's the, Drow elf faction. There's the Skullport faction. In UCLA, we could have the educator faction. We have the student faction. We have the sports faction. We have the merchandising faction. And we have the government that's trying to control it, and we have new factions coming in, whatever. So how does the player character's interaction change things? What is our next big question? If you appreciate this content and want to see more, let me know down below. If you never want to see me talk about Mega Dungeons ever again, let me know down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help me hit 500 subs by August 4th. Remember, I'm running a contest. The 350th sub will win a copy, all expenses paid. I will send it to them out of my own pocket. Mutants and Mastermind 2nd edition that's sitting on my shelf. Stay classy. And remember, daylight savings time, spring forward, fall back. I will talk to you later.